Buying a house is the best investment of your life. Debt is always bad, and you need money to make money. If you nodded your head at any of these, you're definitely not alone. Because for a long time, I believed these things myself as well. But here's the truth that took me years to figure out. A lot of these popular beliefs aren't completely wrong, but they're often incomplete, outdated, or simply misunderstood. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous, because they quietly shape the way you think about money and influence your decisions without you even realizing it. So in this video, I want to break down 6 of the most common money myths that almost everyone gets wrong, and show you what's actually true, so you can understand money on a deeper level and start making better financial decisions going forward. Myth 1. Money is the root of all evil. One of the most common beliefs people have about money is that it's inherently bad, often summarized by the phrase, "Money is the root of all evil." Many of us grew up hearing this, and it creates this quiet guilt around wanting more money or striving for financial success. But interestingly, it's actually a misquote from the Bible. The original verse in 1 Timothy 6:10 says, "The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." And that's a very important distinction, because it's not money itself that's the problem, it's how people relate to it. Wanting to be rich or financially successful is not wrong if your ambition is tied to good values. Wanting money so you can provide for your family, create opportunities, support causes you care about, or gain freedom isn't greedy. That's actually a very human and noble drive. The real danger isn't having money, it's when money has you. When money starts controlling your decisions, when you're willing to sacrifice your integrity, relationships, or peace of mind just to get more of it, that's when it becomes destructive. So the goal isn't to reject money. The goal is to become the kind of person who can have money without being controlled by it. And maybe the book that phrase originally came from has more practical wisdom than people give it credit for. Myth 2. Renting is throwing money away. Another very common belief is that renting is throwing money away. And closely related to this is the belief that buying a house is always the best investment of your life, which sounds logical at first, because when you rent, the money is gone, while when you buy, you're building equity. This idea sounds so logical. People say, why pay rent when you could build equity? But let's look at what actually happens with real numbers. When you buy a house, you don't just pay the mortgage, you also pay unrecoverable costs, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, and interest. These can easily add up to 2 to 4% of the house value every year. Renters, on the other hand, often have more flexibility and liquidity. A long-term study by the Federal Reserve and academic researchers shows that in many periods and locations, renting and investing the difference has outperformed buying a house, especially over 20 to 30-year periods. For example, let's take a realistic scenario. Imagine you have $50,000 for a down payment and can spend around $1,000 per month. If you buy a $250,000 house and use that $1,000 every month to pay off the mortgage, if we assume house prices grow at around 3% per year on average over the long term, you end up with around $607,000 in equity after 30 years. But if you rent a similar place for $850 and invest that initial $50,000 along with the remaining $150 per month into something like the S&P 500, which has historically returned around 8% per year, that money could grow to $770,000 over the same period. And again, this doesn't mean renting is always better than buying, but it clearly shows that renting is not simply throwing money away, and that buying a house is not automatically the best investment of your life. Myth 3. Debt is bad. A lot of people treat all debt like it's evil and try to avoid it at all costs. You see this advice everywhere. Stay debt-free, debt will ruin your life, etc. And honestly, it makes sense on the surface. We've all heard horror stories about people drowning in credit card debt or struggling with huge loans. But here's the more nuanced truth. Not all debt is bad. There's a clear difference between bad debt and good debt. Bad debt is expensive money used to buy things that lose value, like credit cards for clothes, gadgets, or vacations you can't really afford. This kind of debt slowly drains your wealth. Good debt, on the other hand, is used to buy assets or opportunities that can grow in value or generate income over time, like a mortgage, student loans for a high-paying career, or a business loan. Interestingly, good debt can often help you pay less in taxes because interest on certain loans, like mortgages or business loans, is tax-deductible in many countries. The key difference is simple. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket long-term, while good debt has the potential to put more money into your pocket in the future. Of course, even good debt comes with risk, but completely avoiding debt out of fear can actually limit your ability to build wealth faster. Myth 4. More financial knowledge equals better financial decisions. There are plenty of people who understand exactly how investing works, who know about budgeting, saving, and long-term thinking, and still make poor financial decisions, not because they lack information, but because of their behavior. Studies actually confirm this. Research from FINRA and behavioral economists shows that people with high financial literacy scores don't necessarily save more, invest better, or carry less debt than people with average knowledge. Because when it comes to money, decisions are rarely made purely based on logic. They're influenced by emotions, habits, environment, and pressure from others, which means people often act against what they already know is the right thing to do. Think about it like fitness. Almost everyone knows how to lose weight. Eat less, move more. The knowledge is simple, but 40% of the world is still overweight. Why? Because behavior is harder than information. And with money, this works exactly the same. Myth 5. It's not worth investing if you can only contribute a small amount. This is an incredibly common belief, especially among students and young people. A lot of people think, $50 or $100 a month? That's nothing. Why even bother? But the reality is that when it comes to investing, the amount you invest matters far less than when you start. To make this really clear, imagine two people. Let's call them Alex and Mark. Alex starts investing at the age of 20 and puts in just $100 per month. Mark, on the other hand, waits until he's 40, but then invests $500 per month. By the time they both reach the age of 50, Alex ends up with roughly $120,000, while Mark, despite investing 5 times as much every month, ends up with around $85,000. And what makes this even more interesting is that Alex only invested about $36,000 in total, while Mark invested around $60,000, yet still ends up with less. The earlier you start, even with small amounts, the more powerful compounding becomes. So waiting until you can invest a lot often means missing out on the most valuable years. Myth 6. The stock market always goes up. A lot of people look at long-term charts of the S&P 500 and think investing is basically free money. Just buy, wait, and you'll get rich. It looks like a straight line going up forever. And in a way, they're partly right. In the very long term, the stock market has indeed gone up. Over periods of 20, 30, or 40 years, it has delivered strong returns historically. But the problem is that people often misunderstand what that really means. Because while the long-term trend is positive, the short term is completely unpredictable. The market doesn't go up in a straight line. It moves in cycles, with periods of growth, but also periods of sharp declines, sometimes when you least expect it. That's why it's so important that the money you put into the stock market is money you can truly leave there for the long term, at least 7 to 10 years, preferably longer. If you invest money you might need during a crisis, you risk being forced to sell at the worst possible moment, turning a temporary loss into a permanent one. And once you start to question these common beliefs, you begin to realize that building wealth isn't about following what everyone else thinks is true, but about understanding how money actually works. Because in the end, it's not the obvious mistakes that hold people back, but the ideas that feel right, even when they're not.